without the work of the volunteers, campsite just wouldn't be able to function. You know, but fundamentally, you are the people who deliver so much of our services, and we rely on your help and support to do that. And we have not been able to operate in our normal way in the last 6 months. So what I will be doing is, as I said, I want to thank you for your work and explain how we are moving forward and how we'll be delivering services. I am going to share my screen with you and just put up a PowerPoint presentation, as I said, just for me to have a reference so we can have a structure on the presentation. What I will ask is if everyone is muted, I will take questions at the end, and there'll be plenty of time for that. So I'll just give it a second, and I'll ask Paula to give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen now. Great stuff.
Yep.
So just to reiterate, oh, do you know what? This is where technology doesn't work for you. Here we go. This is roughly what I'm going to talk about. I want to welcome you all. Thank you for your support. Talk about our COVID response, what we did as an immediate reaction. Talk a little bit about our 2030 vision, which is our future vision. I want to update you on our mobile unit, which you may be able to see a picture of it in my background behind me. I want to talk a little bit about some of the future challenges that we do face at present, and where we are with that, and then we'll talk about take questions. So, the COVID response, if my video will move forward. When we went into lockdown, I think that we went from being in a place where we were quite well prepared and planned and knew what we were doing. All of the staff and the trustees had come up with an immediate response when COVID started in January, and we'd come up with a 3-stage response, sort of ratcheting up what we were doing. And in very early March, we presented our COVID strategy, saying that we would never reach stage 3. And stage 3 was where we would have to stop, close the offices down, we'd have to stop group activities, and 2 or 3 weeks later, we were at stage 3. And it was a real shock, I think, for everyone. As an emergency response, what we started to do was a ring round of all of our service users. And we thought it was really important that everyone was contacted and we could check that they were okay, that they were getting food, they had the support, that their questions were being answered, and that we could support them through that lockdown. And we are now drawing to a close of that phase, and there's very few calls being made. But in the last 6 months, we've made over 6,000 calls to our service users, and over 1,800 people have been spoken to. And of those, 3/4 wanted to engage in conversations and wanted to know more and to have a chat. Of that, almost 1,400 people, 60% wanted regular callbacks. And obviously throughout the lockdown period, we've been regularly staying in touch with those people, either calling them every 1, 2, 3 or 4 weeks. 40% of the people needed extra advice or information, and 22% of them were referred for additional support, either within campsite or to an external agency. Now, I think that you can see from those figures that there was a real need for support, information and advice during lockdown. And the work that was done there, I think, really was fantastic. What has happened is, and as some of you are aware, there is still a residual need for more ring round support. There are more people who are at home and just need to be checked in on. And what we are doing now is we are trying to transfer a lot of this ring round work to volunteers, just to make sure that the people who are isolated and alone are, they're in touch with someone, and if they need help, that they can get it. As we've sort of been easing off on the emergency response work, we have been developing COVID safe or COVID secure ways of working. At the heart of what we're doing now are some fairly simple principles. And the first question we have to ask ourselves is, can the need be met on the telephone or using Zoom? Can the needs be met in what we refer to as a garden visit, where you go into an open air space and use social distancing to support the people? Or if the need can only be met indoors, how can we mitigate the risk with PPE, hygiene and social distancing tools? We're very lucky that we've managed to get some PPE training from the NHS, and we now have PPE equipment available to all staff. And if, as volunteers, you are required to go into someone's house, especially as winter is coming, what we will do is we will provide you with PPE and training to use it appropriately. As we're moving into more face-to-face indoor work, because there are so many different ways that Campsite does things, what we are doing is we're doing separate risk assessments for every stream of work. And it's really important to us that as we move into providing more support, that we do it in a safe and secure way. As we are doing this, the other thing I don't want to do is to open up a service and then have to stop it again. And especially with local lockdowns and some of the rules changing, we are not going to start to do things so that we're not going to be sending mixed messages saying that we can do this and then change. Everything that we're doing is being done in as safe and secure a way as possible. The 2030 vision. We started this quite a while ago, before COVID came along. And when I first came here, as all chief executives want to do, I wanted to do a bit of a strategic review. It's one of those things I'm afraid chief executives do. And I spoke with a number of people, including a group of volunteers, to talk about some of their visions for what they thought about Campsite. And I spoke to trustees, volunteers, staff, and service users to get a view of what we should be looking at. And one of the things that consistently came out was some of the challenges that somebody with a visual impairment has, especially about getting about, going to unfamiliar places. There was a request for more social interaction, for more activities. And we've developed a vision, and we call it the 2030 vision because it is really down the line. It is a long way away, but there are certain principles that we're going to start to implement now and move forward, and we're going to go through a series of steps towards this 2030 vision. And at the core of the 2030 vision, it's creating a 21st century service for visually impaired people in Cambridgeshire. A more decentralised delivery model where we deliver more services in communities, where rather than being focused on Wisbech and Chesterton, we want to be more embedded in communities with staff and activities going on where people live. We will be moving towards having more outreach workers working in communities, supported by a mobile base. A mobile unit, Rafe will tell me off saying base, it's a mobile unit, which is the van behind me. And they will be supported by volunteers in the communities. And we will have second line specialist support providing emotional support, magnification clinics, and so on, where those needs are identified. Part of the vision is also to create more community facilities, and in these times it's very hard to imagine this being something we're going to do soon, but there is a vision to create sensory cafes, places that people could just drop into that are user-friendly for someone with a sensory impairment, and also would provide employment opportunities for people with sensory impairments. And if that model works, it would be something that we hope to have a few of these throughout Cambridgeshire, where people can drop in, socialise and do more things and just talk and meet up. Where we are now in that broad vision that I've just given you of the 2030 vision, what are the first steps? The first step is getting the mobile unit. And the mobile unit is, oh, you're over my lovely picture of the campsite van. I've got some other pictures which hopefully will show it to you slightly better. But some of the key things about the mobile unit, it's there to raise awareness. It is something that we know that there are people in certain communities that aren't aware that we're doing things there. And I hope that this van coming and parking up in Girton or Chatteris will raise the profile of campsite on our work in that area. It will provide pop-up sessions for awareness and education where people can come along for information and support. It will support some of the community activities that we really want to get back to doing, and it will provide one-to-one support to people. These are some more pictures that I'll try to describe to people now. It's a Ford Transit van, and it's white in colour, but it has primary bright colours on it. They're in the campsite core branded colours. It has slightly different branding on the two sides of it. One side we've called our inspirational side, and it has a picture of a child who is a service user with the tagline "Inspiring Opportunity and Independence." And on the other side of the van is a more elderly service user with the tagline "Supporting local people with sight loss for over 100 years." And that is our more functional tagline. At the back of the van, it has a list of information that is our core services. We provide equipment and technology, information and advice, practical and emotional support, social and sporting activities. The van has a lot of racking and storage, so it has equipment, and it has an awning that comes out. So it has, it's quite flexible, and it can be used in a variety of ways. Moving on, if I can get off that, where we are with some of our funding challenges. Historically, community fundraising has been a big part of what we've relied on, and clearly it is just not happening at present and is not going to be starting for some time. Historically, campsite has had a deficit budget most years, and we've relied on legacies to make sure that when we get a good legacy in, that's when we've sort of managed to fill those deficits. This means that going forward, we are going to have to look at how we fundraise in the future. We've created an information pack that we will be distributing to all volunteers, because we want you to be aware of the challenges that campsite faces for fundraising. And it is not a direct ask for money from you, although if you want to give us money, we would gladly receive it. And it is not a request for you to become fundraisers. But if you haven't got this information and you come across somebody who could support us, you can't give that information on. So we are very lucky that we have a free will writing service. So part of it is making you aware that if you talk to someone who wants to rewrite their will, then we can support them in that. We've created what we are calling a committed charitable giving scheme, because it is something in these times where we can't have people attending and supporting lots of events. If somebody wants to give us £2.50, £5, £10 a month, it will make a huge difference to what we do. as I said, we're giving this information to you, and whilst it would be great if you can personally support us, the key thing for me is that you're aware of what our needs are so that you can support Campsite if the opportunity arises. Before we move on to any questions, I just want to say again, I've sort of gone through that quickly, and I'm sure you will have lots of questions on it. I want to thank you all for the work that you've done for Campsite. It is critical, and moving forward, as we reopen, as we start to deliver these services, as we start to do more, we will need your support in the future. And I really hope that you can help us support people with visual impairments throughout Cambridgeshire. So I'll stop sharing and ask if everyone who is muted wants to unmute. I don't know if Paula can unmute. And if anyone's got a question, if you want to ask, if there's too many questions at the time, I may have to sort of ask if we remute and just deal with things. But
can I just tell you because I've used Zoom a lot. You can't unmute. We all have to unmute ourselves. A lot of people are still muted. They have to do it themselves.
Thank you. This is one of the great things about technology. We're all learning. Thank you, Pamela.
Yeah, it's all right.
Does anyone have any questions? Avril, do you want to start?
Are you going to continue with the Braille service?
I would love to, and I think that I can't quite see Alice, but I thought I heard that she was. Oh, yes, there she is. Hello, Alice. Alice knows that I actually strongly support Braille. I think it's really important. I think it should be taught more. I think that it is an amazing thing, and the challenge is, for most people, it's taught too late. And that's why it becomes very hard to use. I think technology is also making it harder because technology is supporting people in their early stages of sight loss, and it almost is discouraging them to learn Braille. I think that we should be promoting Braille. I am a passionate supporter. Going back to what I said about the risk assessment, to restart the Braille service, what we will have to do is look at our risk assessments and reintroduce it at a time when we can do it that is safe and appropriate and sustainable. Does that answer your question, Avril?
Yes, thank you. It's my friend Marion is keen for it to continue because she knows the benefits of it, and she's been in contact with some school children that are keen to be learning it.
Where we are today, we can't restart it today, but it's something that I think we have the tools, the processes, the systems, so we can look at it and come up with a plan and identify where we need to be to restart. But personally, I am committed to Braille. I think it's a really important service, and I think it will always be part of Campsite's offering.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have a question?
So if there's someone's on their own in their house, how will you arrange so someone can visit that person? Because somebody I phoned, she doesn't see many people. So who would go and visit them?
What we have to do a home visit, we can do it we're now in a point where we can consider volunteers going into homes. But for us to send you into a home, we would have to provide you with PPE training and make sure that you are safe. Because part of it, there's a two-way thing here. You have to be safe, and the service user has to be safe. So it would have to be a risk assessment, and part of it would be based upon what their needs are, what their house is, how long the visit is, what the equipment are, what your age and health is, what their age and health is. And if you can see, would be done on a case-by-case basis, but we have the systems and processes and policies now to consider that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Mike, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to ask a related question. Is it, I mean, I can see the problems with going into somebody's home, but what if you were to go for a walk with them, say to a local park, socially distanced and wearing a mask, of course? What about that scenario?
The scenario of outside, this is what I think I refer to as the garden visit. In open air, where you can keep socially distant, you know, we are now in a position to say that that is a safe activity to undertake. And what we have had discussions about, and is more complex, and again, you'd have to do an individual risk assessment, is if the person needs guiding or support, then what we will need is we can look at ways of mitigating those risks using PPE. And I think it's Dawn in the Fenlands. Part of it is your clothing has to be, if somebody is touching your clothing, then that needs to be, it's a vector that could convey the disease. The system that we've come up with, if somebody needs guiding, then obviously using PPE stops inhaling, but having a cagoule that you can put over your clothes that is touched by the person, and hand washing, and then when you finished guiding them, you take that cagoule off using good hand sanitizing, put it into a bag for a minimum of 72 hours, and then you can use it again.
Okay, so a garden visit is okay?
Yes. And does that make, is that clear, Mike?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think garden visits are, you know, quite a useful thing because you're actually there with the person instead of talking to them on the phone or on a Zoom or something like that.
Yes, and I think that is something that we're happy to do. We have done a few garden visits, especially with people reading post and things like that, and part of this is that there is a little bit of a process and why everything has to be looked at individually. If you're going to read somebody's post and they're going to pass you the post to read it, they can sit inside their house, you can stand outside or have a seat in their garden, and you could read their post to them while they're still inside. As long as you wash your hands before you touch and you wash your hands after you touch, that is how we mitigate the risk of spread. Martin, did you have a, sorry, Mike, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Martin, did you have a question?
I've been visiting one of your clients, as it were, in a garden visits mode, but now the weather has, you know, taken a turn for, you know, for worse. We switched to Zoom because she's lucky enough to have a carer. She's somebody who's very incapacitated, so the carer does help her set the Zoom up. And we have an hour Zoom every week, which works very well, actually. I mean, and I'm just wondering what if you're in part of your sort of package, whether you're going to offer clients who are able to grapple, if you like, with the technology, the chance to training or whatever to actually take part in Zoom if home visits aren't possible.
Definitely, and I think I'm just thinking of getting the correct figures in my head. We did a survey during lockdown where we spoke to people, and before lockdown, there was, you know, the perceived wisdom was that a lot of visually impaired people did not want to use technology because of their age and so on. Of people questioned, 30% in the survey did not have access to a computer or tablet. But of that 30%, it was split into 3 groups. One group of people who had no interest in learning about technology. There was another group that were interested but a bit unsure. And there was about a third, I think it was about 11.5% of the total survey amount wanted to use technology. And I think one of the changes that has happened through lockdown is, before lockdown, people thought, it's technology, I'm not interested in it, I don't want to know about it. But now they've heard so many people talking about it, they'll hear about things like this, that they've realized that actually you can use technology, and that there are people of their age and ability that are using technology to stay in touch. And that is a noticeable percentage. We've managed to get some tablets, some Amazon Fire tablets, which we've given out to people as a trial, and that was a great success. And we've managed to get some money to start what we're referring to as a try before you buy scheme. And we're going to actually have a series of different technology items, from Amazon Echoes through to tablets, that we will give to people so that they can try it. And if it works, they can buy that item, and we'll buy a new one to try with someone else. If they don't want it, they can return it to us, and then we can give it to someone else. And that is a scheme that we are in the process of setting up now. As I said, there's a lot going on, and not all of it I can cover in my briefing, but I think that there has been a fundamental change in people's willingness to adopt technology through lockdown.
Because I believe I'm part of the Born support group, and I believe that Lulu is going quite far down the line to getting a group together to meet virtually, as it were, on Zoom, as we can't meet in person.
That is one of the pieces of work that we've been trying. It's a trial. I haven't seen the outcomes of the trial yet, but there has been something that Lulu is working on. Martin, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Pamela. Oh,
Can't hear you, Pamela.
Can get Zoom on a phone, a smartphone, an iPhone or an Android. You can use Zoom on that. So a lot of people have those, even if they haven't got a computer or
yes.
an iPad.
Yeah, thank you, Pamela. I'm aware of the time. We've got time for a few more questions. Pete, do you want to?
Yeah, it's a slightly different angle here. People who we're phoning, who we had never met before. I've had a couple of situations where they've disappeared. Unfortunately, they've returned again, and I've been aware that I don't actually know where they live, who their neighbours, friends, anything else are. Does Campsite, when somebody registers with you, are you provided with emergency contact details of relatives?
We do get next of kin details. I'm going to look at Paula. I don't think we have it for everyone, but it is something that we do store.
Okay.
I'm looking slightly at Paula and perhaps Joy and Kate. I don't know if if one of the other members of staff. Joy, do you want to come in on that?
Yes, when we do befriending, one of the things we do is we ask people emergency contacts. So normally it'd be a family member, but it could be a neighbour. So we do have that information generally on befrienders.
And one of the things, sorry, Pete, if I can just,
sure.
We can come back to where we are now, but one of the things that we are doing, I mentioned the vision being a 21st century service. We are implementing a new system that will allow volunteers access to the main database, but in a very controlled, limited way. And part of it will be that, if from data protection and all sorts of reasons, I'm quite sure you all understand that giving you access to our current database is very hard. But that's why this new system, and it's called Charity Log, it actually allows us to refer clients to you, and you will only be able to see the people referred to you. And that means you'll have this information in a way that you won't have to come to Joy to ask for that information if you needed it.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you.
But currently where you are, if any of you do need that information, the right thing for you to do would be to contact Joy or Kate. And if we have that information, they'll be able to support you in getting in touch with that person. Can I have a thumbs up for that, Joy and Kate? Perfect. As a chief executive, it's always worrying that you don't give the right answer. Does anyone else have any questions? I can't believe I've managed to get through all the questions. There's one thing in chat here. Here we go. Do you know, it was actually Rafe reminding me to talk about GDPR rules. Okay, really want to thank you all again for your work, and I know I've said this already, but it's worth saying time and time again. Campsite cannot function without you. It's as simple as that. I get so many positive responses from our service users at the impact you all have with them, and you know, we really appreciate your work. We are sorry that probably during this emergency period we've had to go into this emergency response mode and stop things. We want to get back out there, and we are now in this mode of getting back out in the community, but doing it in a safe way that we can consistently deliver. Avril, you're coming in on my end. What question do you have?
I just want to say thank you very much to everybody who's continued to produce the newsletters and keep us all informed of what's going on, that we can then share with our befrienders.
Thank you. No, there's been a lot of work going on in the background to get to this point. And as we reopen in a sustainable, safe way, we'll need your support, and we'll need new volunteers, and we'll need to make sure that we can create a sustainable funding model moving forward. We would really appreciate your feedback. I'll send you an email at the end of this, just with some of this information. It will have the slide deck that I used in it. It will have some information about the other things I spoke about. It will also have a link to a video that we've produced, which is part of us raising our profile, trying to get back out there. Please spread the word and share the information that we have. We would really appreciate some feedback, and if you found this useful, and if you think that we should do more things like this in the future. We are going to be in slightly odd times for some time to come. But I appreciate your support, and I think that Campsite is moving out of our emergency response and into the future, and the future is very bright and positive. Thank you all for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
See you all.
Just wanted to say that you seem to be steering the ship extremely well in very difficult waters at the moment. A good session, I think.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks for that feedback. Thank you very much. It is all the staff, not me. They make me look good. So all the thanks to them. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Stay safe.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.